Hey guys, so for today's video, I want to talk about something that I really haven't talked about in a video before, and it was something I just kind of came up with the other day. It just kind of instantly popped in my head. Um, just something that kind of just stuck with me for a couple of hours, and I said to myself, you know what? I just got to make a video about this. I just gotta, since basically a lot of these videos that I do are almost a form of film journalism. With me reviewing movies or me having a discussion about movies or basically it is a form of film journalism. And so, with that being said, I wanted to do a video about unique uses of journalism in films. These are films that um, basically have a unique use of journalism in these movies. So whether it's a part of the storyline or something that one of the characters is doing in the movie, or just something journalism related in the movie, and just films, because all five of these films I'm about to talk about are films that are close to me in some way. Either I've just really enjoyed them, or when I think about journalism used in movies, these are probably one of the five films I think about. So let's get started. So like I said, this is a pretty unique video, so I apologize if it's a little hard to follow along, but just grin and bear with me, and this could be a really interesting ride if it is indeed an interesting video. So for the first film I'm going to talk about, so like I said, this is about unique uses of journalism in film. Um, I liked how in Spider-Man 2, the Sam Raimi ones, not the newer ones by Mark Webb. So these are the older ones, but with Sam Raimi. I liked how whenever Peter Parker was at the Daily Bugle, he basically you got the impression that this was a very busy environment. With journalism, they always have to meet deadlines, and they always gotta have something ready to go. And they're always emphasizing that J. Jonah Jameson, the employees at the Daily Bugle, they have 5 minutes to deadline, or always confirming things with him, even while he has meetings with people. And so to me, it just kind of had an interesting view on kind of journalism at its most busiest peak. I thought that was a very interesting approach with that. So that's just something I've noticed when watching Spider-Man 2 by Sam Raimi. That it's a very busy environment when it comes to deadlines and things. From what I've seen from journalism sources that are on a tight deadline, it's a very busy environment for sure. Um, and the next one I want to talk about in this list is Man of Steel. I liked how in that movie, this really isn't a spoiler just because it's not really significant to the storyline. It's just something that just so happens to happen in the movie. Basically, Lois Lane um, wanted to get this article about basically Clark Kent being this being from another world, and I liked how Perry White, who's played by Lawrence Fishburne in this version of Superman, basically tells Lois Lane flat out that they can't publish it in their the papers that people would pick up in Metropolis because people would, because he asked Lois Lane, could you imagine how people would react if they saw something like this? And to me, that's a very realistic view of how a real paper would view that, because people kind of tend to freak out when it comes to real life aliens being among us and things of that nature because we're so used to seeing them in sci-fi films and things that are fictional. And I liked how the film really emphasized that if this alien being of some kind were to exist, a lot of people would probably be freaked out by the fact that there's other beings outside of our own. That there's other beings and there's other worlds outside of ours that are also very intelligent. So I thought that was a very interesting viewpoint that Man of Steel offered during the movie. Then this next one, I'm pretty sure this came from another film that I really like called Copland. But at the same time, I could be wrong, but I know a cop film that I really enjoyed, like Copland, did this. So, like I said, I'm pretty sure this is Copland, but forgive me if it isn't. Um, in Copland, you guys basically, there was this whole underground mafia thing going on. Sylvester Stallone's character was, and I'm just giving you a synopsis of the movie. I'm not trying to give you any spoilers. Basically, in the movie, Sylvester Stallone, he was the sheriff of this town that was very laid back. He didn't have he really wasn't under pressure a lot just because there really wasn't a lot going on in this town. Almost everybody in the town that lived there were cops or were connected to cops in some way. But when an underground mafia thing starts to undergo itself and starts to get revealed and informed by Sylvester Stallone when he starts discovering that these things are going on. Um, there's a lot of things in the paper where things do and don't get published. So I thought it was an interesting approach on how journalism, it's freedom of speech. We even have an amendment in the Constitution about it. And I liked how in this movie there was kind of things that could and couldn't get published, just because like this underground mafia was running it, and very few people knew about it. And even Sylvester Stallone, who was the sheriff of this town, really wasn't aware of it, and he's lived there for several years and has supervised it for several years. So that was an interesting approach on journalism, the fact that there really was this town where there's things that could and couldn't get published. So not only was this mafia thing going down, but the freedom of the press thing almost didn't affect the city in the way. So I thought that was kind of an interesting approach with journalism affecting that city, because it was more restricted in that movie. So that was just another film that sparked my attention with that. Um, and the next one is Hitch with Will Smith. I liked how in that movie, even the small stuff can make headlines. There was a scene with Kevin James and the girl that he's Allegra Cole was her name, the character in the movie, and they had this dance together, and it was very minor. He had this very stupid dance that he basically ignored Will Smith about in the movie. He refused to rely on Will Smith's advice, and he kind of does his own dance. The dance that Will Smith thinks would humiliate him out in public, and it made news. Because he was out with Allegra Cole, who was this big celebrity. He it just basically, long story short, I like how even the small stuff in life can make headlines like that. So that was kind of an interesting approach with journalism, because there was this big story point in the movie where the people are trying to ask him, who's this Albert Brennan guy, and what's he doing with this big celebrity? How, if he's this a small accountant, how come he's with this big person? And I just thought it was a little interesting small journalism thing that happened in the movie. And because Eva Mendes worked as a columnist, it kind of made sense that journalism played a very big aspect to that movie. Then the last film I'm going to talk about with you today is The Green Hornet. And for those who've seen the film, it's going to be pretty easy why I put this one on the list. I liked how there was two guys always causing trouble, and they were always trying to make sure that it made the front page of the paper, because in that movie, Seth Rogen, who plays Britt Reed in the movie, who becomes the Green Hornet, his dad dies, and he has to take over his paper. And because he knows little to nothing about journalism, he basically, as the Green Hornet, he wants people to think he's a bad guy, but he's really a good guy undercover. So he thought what would make interesting headlines for his paper is that him and his friend Kato, who is pretty significant in the Green Hornet stuff, the Green Hornet comics and show, they would cause some type of trouble every night, or they would really realistically go out and save people, and it would somehow make the huge headline front page news, and they would try to do it every night for as long as they could as these two characters. And I just thought it was a very interesting way of approaching journalism in that movie, simply because Britt Reed works for this big newspaper, the Daily Sentinel, and the Green Hornet show, and the Green Hornet comics, and the Green Hornet radio show, and the Green Hornet serials, because he had a serial at one point too. Um, so I thought it was just an interesting approach with two guys causing trouble, and they're always trying to make sure it's the front page, not the second page or the third page, but the front page news. And they try to do it every single night for as often as they can. And they always were trying to make sure that it involved the Green Hornet and that it involved Kato. So I thought that was a very interesting approach. So, like I said, guys, I apologize that this is a very out there kind of video, but like I said, the other day I was just really thinking about it, just unique uses of journalism in film, since what I've been doing a lot with this channel is basically considered film journalism by some probably. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. One quick note too, for those who watch my channel quite a bit on YouTube and Facebook, I do plan on doing a top 10 films of 2013 video soon. Problem is, there's a film called Her by Spike Jonze coming out pretty soon on January 10th in my area. And as soon as that comes out, because I was pretty highly anticipated for that movie, I'm planning on posting that video shortly after I see that film, because by then I'll know if it made my top 10 list of 2013 or not, or if it didn't. And I also need to see American Hustle and Wolf of Wall Street pretty soon too. So those will also be factors in my official top 10 list for 2013, because all three of those films are currently under consideration for possibly going onto the list if I do enjoy them like other people are saying that they are. So like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this unique use of journalism video that I've done, and I hope to see you here for the next video.